Welding's just something that's, once you get involved with it, it's hard to leave. Gray hair that should have retired 30 years ago.
Jason Becker is a Marine veteran and 25-year welder, and the host of the Arc Junkies podcast.
Everybody's like, go to school, go to college, get a degree, compete for jobs that there's not really a market for.
I ended up going to business administration, then I minored in finance, then I went into IT, and then I went into industrial distribution and selling tools and equipment to welders and carpenters. Like zigzagged around, no one held my hand, lost. Why are kids not getting into the welding trade? Like what do you think that's holding them back?
Welding is not something you're gonna learn in a week.
All right, welcome back to the Lost Art of the Skilled Trades podcast. I'm down at the Welding Summit in Texas, Woodlands, Texas, and I had Jason Becker, host of Arc Junkies podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It is so good to have you here. And I remember being on Weld Wednesday.
Yep.
I don't know, was that like a year and a half ago?
Yeah, that sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, and we got to connect, obviously through the American Welding Society at FabTech a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said, I didn't know what you looked like. So somebody said, find the guy with the longest beard. And I was like, okay, that's definitely him. How has the show been for you in the summit here? What do you feel like, you come to these type of shows? What are you trying to learn?
Anything and everything. Like some of the biggest minds in the welding industry come to these events. So you get to pick their brain and chat with them and network, especially like the after hours things. But there's so many things that, so many different topics or sessions that they cover here that I don't get exposed to on a daily basis with the stuff that I do. So I'm learning more stuff about ASME Section 9, updates to that code book, crack repairs, like all these different facets of the industry that I'm not directly involved in, but it's still good information to know.
Yeah, you're always learning, right? You don't
100%.
know everything. You're always learning. For the people that don't know you, and obviously my audience, can you talk just a little bit about sort of your background as a welder? How you got into the craft?
Yeah, so I've been welding for the past 26 years. I started off at the ripe old age of 15 in high school, and I just kind of fell in love with welding. I watched my dad cut a piece of chain. I used to work with him over the summers. And he was digging swimming pools at the time. Well, he was running the excavator. I was running the shovel. And we got back to the shop one day, and I saw him cut a piece of steel chain with an oxy fuel torch. And I was like, man, that is cool. Like, I'd never seen anything like that. And so he's like, talked a little bit about it. And then, he told me it's like part of welding. And, so I was obviously interested. So at my high school, I was able to take like skilled trades. They had skilled trades programs, like a dual enrollment thing. So I was able to take welding for 2 years. So that's kind of how I got into it. And then like right after I graduated, I joined the Marine Corps. I was a welder in the Marine Corps for 4 years. I decided to get out of that. I got tired of playing in the sandbox. So I came back stateside, and I got a job doing structural steel ironwork. And, welding is just something that's, I've never left it. It has that tendency, like once you get involved with it, it's hard to leave. I mean, you talk to some of these guys out here with, gray hair that should have retired 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're on their third retirement because they just can't leave the industry. Something, continuously pulls them back. They love the work that they're doing.
It's intoxicating.
It is.
It really is. When you were saying that your dad was doing the swimming pool, was he in construction or was he a welder? What was his background?
Well, at that time, he was doing heavy equipment operation, but he also had his CDL, so he could transport the heavy equipment and as well as operate the heavy equipment.
Got it. All right. So he was more your inspiration, would you say? That kind of got you?
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, like he's kind of like a jack of all trades. He worked oil fields. He's been in construction. He's got a CDL. Like he's a crane operator right now. So he's always been, blue collar background. My entire family has been blue collar. But they told me growing up, they're like, don't do what I do. Go to school.
But why?
I don't know. Well, I think back then, like everybody just kind of bastardized the trades. So it's not like it is today. Like now there's a huge push to get people into the skilled trades because they realized that they were essential and that the world doesn't revolve. The world can't go around if you don't have people doing the skilled trades. So now it's becoming a little bit more glorified to get into skilled trades. It's becoming a little bit more respected. People realize, you don't have to be the dropout flunky kid to get in, to make a good career and a good life and in the skilled trades. Everybody's like, go to school, go to college, get a degree, and go out there and compete for jobs that there's not really a market for, which doesn't make any sense. But, hey, I got the degree.
Right. Where's the ROI on that anyway?
Nothing unless you're the one handing out the loan money.
Right. Exactly. I always say that I went to school for 4 years. I went to the University of Rhode Island. I was a programmer. I did C++, and I was taking these advanced calculus courses, and I was completely confused because no one told me what to do. And then I ended up going to business administration, then I minored in finance, then I went into IT, and then I went into industrial distribution and selling tools and equipment to welders and carpenters. Like zigzagged around, no one held my hand, lost.
Yeah, there's really not like a career path. Everybody, you go to get a degree. Like I did the same thing, so like I drank the Kool-Aid. I had the GI Bill when I got out of the military, and I was like, well, I got to go get this degree so I can make something out of myself because that's what I've been told. And, I chose construction, right? I was going to get a degree in construction management because like I was already in the construction trades. Like, why not? It'd be an easy transition to get into. And the further I got along into it, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to make less money, as a construction manager, managing some of these, different projects and stuff. And I'm going to be stuck in a cubicle all the time. And I don't want to do the office work. So like I finished the degree. So I've got my AA, I've got a bachelor's, and I just stuck with welding. I think some of the classes that I took, during my time in college, I don't regret it. I used some of that information that I learned in there, but I didn't pursue that path,
Yeah. I mean, you have to find what lights you up at the end of the day. And if it's welding, that's great. If it's something else, then it's something else, but you sort of found your passion. How did you get into podcasting? Did you fall into it?
Yeah, I literally, it was kind of handed to me. So in 2019, I left, so I was a welding educator. So I was teaching post-secondary adult vocation. And in 2019, I left that to go make YouTube videos for a company called Weld.com. During my time at Weld.com, I met the host of the Arc Junkies podcast, the former host, Jimmy McKnight, down at a event here in Houston over at South Coast Welding Academy. We did like a collaboration with WeldTube. And so I got to meet Jimmy. Well, fast forward, I leave Weld.com, go back to teaching. This is like right at the beginning of 2020, like March, April timeframe. And Jimmy says, hey, I'm getting out of the welding industry and it doesn't make sense for me to host a welding podcast. And, I'm looking for a host. And I said, okay, yeah, I'll call around, I'll see if I can find somebody. He's like, no, I want you to do it. And I was like, dude, I don't know anything about podcasting, absolutely nothing. And he's like, I'll walk you through it. He's like, I'll tell you what gear to get. I'll give you, we'll do a couple episodes together, this, that, and the other thing. And, I'll just pass everything over to you. And I was like, I hemmed and hawed for a couple of weeks. And I was like, this is a great resource for the community. I would hate to see it go away or, somebody take a hold of it and just turn it into a heap of garbage. So I called him up and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And we recorded one episode together and he showed me how to do the editing via like Zoom. And he's like, all right, man, have fun with it. And that was 5 years ago.
Okay. And you've been going on ever since?
Been going ever since. I'm taking a bit of a hiatus right now. After the 5 years, I've put out about 450 episodes. And I was like, man, this is a lot between scheduling. Well, I mean, scheduling, editing, publishing, all that stuff and promoting the episode plus working a full-time job. I was like, I need to take some time off.
Wait, you do your own editing?
Everything.
Oh, wow.
Everything from the time I hit record to the time I hit, submit on my hosting service.
Okay. I outsourced that stuff. I can't. I just like being in front of the camera, and that's about it. Anything else, I'm like, not for me. Interesting. I didn't realize that. I thought it was started from scratch. I didn't realize that you took it over from somebody else. What is it with doing all those episodes? What is it? Do you like the storytelling aspect? Do you like the telling people's stories? And is it only welding? Do you stay within welding, or do you go to any other trades?
For the most part, it's all welding. So it's 100% anything and everything related to welding. I've had, I do like the storytelling aspect of it. And that's why I think I keep coming back because you find so many interesting people with interesting stories. I've had everybody on from like artists, backyard hobbyists, welding educators, inspectors, engineers. Like I've hit the gamut of anything and everything related to welding. So I did one episode that had nothing to do with welding. Although the guy did dabble in welding, it was Rob Dietrich. He is the master blender for blackened Metallica whiskey, or master distiller for that. And so I had him on, but he kind of has somewhat of a welding background because he does like custom Jeeps and all that stuff.
Okay. So he dabbles a little bit.
Yeah, he dabbles in welding.
Yeah. I think I like the story aspect of like telling Shannon's story that she's never been introduced to my audience. And just hearing her background and how she got started and just hearing these inspiring stories, really just to get to the younger generation. That's really what it comes down to. Like when I speak tomorrow, because I'm speaking on a topic about, inspiring the next generation, how to recruit, retain, and build that bridge to Gen Z. I enjoy having these stories told because it helps Gen Z to say, okay, I can have a career in the skilled trades and I can also be successful, but here is also the ladder of success because I saw that this person did it. The person was on Andrew's podcast. Now I understand. That's what I love to share to the audience.
Oh, for sure. I mean, welding's just like, I don't know any other trade like it. And I haven't worked in other trades. I've worked with other trades people, and welders are like, they're passionate about the work that they do. I mean, that's like one of the careers where you'll do it all day for a job, and then you'll go home and you'll turn on your welding machine in the garage and you'll build something, or you'll practice, or, just mess around with it, or, fabricate something. And, I don't know too many electricians that go home and practice wiring, or like plumbers that, they're practicing plumbing the toilet. I just don't see that. Welding's, it's a different group of people, a different breed.
What is your thought around why there's not enough welders out there? So we need about 330,000 welders by 2029. Why is there such a gap? If there's this, we're sitting at this summit and like, it doesn't feel like you're around people, who are interested in the welding trade, but why are kids not getting into the welding trade? Like what do you think it's holding them back?
There's several different reasons. Like I said, for the longest time, skilled trades were bastardized, especially welding. Like, don't do that. It's dark, dirty, and dangerous, and this, that, and everything. So it's never been really painted in a good light. For a long time, there's in addition to the skills gap, there's also a wage gap. The pay in the industry has been relatively stagnant for the past couple of decades. But now that people are realizing, oh, we don't have enough people, well, maybe we should pay them what they're actually worth.
This fires me up because on weldingworkforcedata.com, it says that it's about $26.79 median wage, about $53,000. And then kids say, well, I can't live on that, right? Everything's more expensive. So is it just raise the wages and that will magically get people in, or is it more to that?
I think there's more to it. You got to get people interested in it. I think we do a very poor job. I mean, the shows like, Monster Garage and American Choppers, all that stuff back in the day, most of the people that I have on my podcast, so how'd you get into welding? And they're like, oh man, I saw Jesse James build this awesome, this, that, and the other, fill in the blank. Or, these guys from, American Choppers build this awesome bike, and then I got into welding. So we actually had shows that, it exposed people to welding, or exposed people to skilled trades for that matter. It's starting to come back around to where, everybody's kind of pushing that agenda because we want to recruit people. But I think we gotta start getting in earlier. But I mean, there's just so many reasons why there's that big gap that we were talking about. Like the pay was stagnant, lack of exposure, people pushing degrees. And I think, a lot of folks nowadays, they don't want to work with their hands. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if it's not for you, like, don't do it. But I think we also glamorize the wrong professions. So you got like your Beyoncés and Cardi B's and, all these football players and gamers and TikTokers and stuff like that. And they're like fully loaded and doing like minimal effort that you see on the screen. It's like, so I think everybody wants to be like the next big influencer, Mr. Beast, like all these things. They're like, oh man, this guy, he just plays video games all day and he's, driving a Maserati. It's not very practical. I mean, you're looking at like 0.0001% of the population that can actually do that. So like shoot for that goal, but also like learn a skilled trade just in case you're not the next Mr. Beast or Cardi B or whatever. You got something to fall back on,
Exactly. And the wage pushback, I see this a lot on social because I'm on TikTok and YouTube and a lot of social platforms, but I love TikTok because the comments there and just the engagement there. And a lot of the pushback is, okay, as an apprentice, I'm only making $16 to $18 an hour. This is the way they view it. And then I'm looking at working at McDonald's or Chipotle, where $21, $22 an hour. Why would I do this, welding and versus making more money right away? But it doesn't tell the full story of, year one as apprentice, year two, and as you scale up. But I think a lot of kids really view that, and they look at other avenues, and they also they want instant gratification instead of delayed gratification.
Yeah, I mean that's a big point. I mean, you raise a great point that why would I want to go make $16 an hour as an apprentice when I can go over to Chipotle and make $21 an hour? Well, guess what? 10 years into Chipotle, you may get like a $3 raise with like no pension, no annuity, no benefits or anything like that. You start off as an apprentice, $16, $17 an hour. When I went through the Ironworkers Union, they gave me a $1 raise. Well, it's roughly a $1 raise every 1,000 hours that I worked throughout my apprenticeship. So, I mean, yeah, you start off, I think I started off around 19 and by the time I topped out, I was making 23. Plus you got all the fringe benefits. I had free medical, free dental. That didn't come out of my pocket. It didn't come out of my wages. That came out of the employer's wages. A pension, annuity, like all these different benefits. Yeah, it's massive. I mean, when you add it all up, there's a lot of money to be made, but you said, they want that instant gratification, short, a little bit of effort and a lot of, a lot of reward at the end. And that's just not realistic.
Yeah. If someone wants to take the path and they're money driven in welding, right? They finish their apprenticeship, they're a journeyman. Like, what are the next handful of steps or what can they get into if they want to make more than the median wage? Where would you tell them to go into in welding?
Anything specialty related, process piping, pressure piping, piping, anything that is related to pipe that pays, pretty good money. Get out of the shop, you make a little bit less money working in a shop. If you are a traveling welder, rig welders, or, the people that have their own businesses, I mean, they make really good money, but they have to travel. They've got to go around from shutdown to shutdown and all these turnarounds and different things like that. I mean, they just rake in the money and they can work on their own schedule. But it's not for the faint of heart. What, those guys that are out there making $100,000 a year, what people don't see behind the scenes is, yeah, they're working 7 days a week. They're putting in 60, 70, 80 hours a week. A lot of overtime, a lot of per diem, working in harsh conditions. It's not very friendly. It's a lot of hard work. You're not going to find a job that's 15 minutes from the house where you can go in there, walk in every day and they're going to pay you $100,000 salary every year welding up widgets. That's not going to happen. You got to be realistic. You got to go where the money is. When I used to teach college, I would help my students with job placement. And the salary range for students coming out of the program was anywhere from $17 to $32 an hour, depending on where the students wanted to go. Everybody wanted to go to the $32 an hour job, right? That's oh man, there's an employer that's going to starting pay is $32 an hour plus benefits, but they didn't want to do the work to get there. They wanted to put in minimal effort at the school, and they couldn't even pass the weld test, to work for that employer. But the people that they did qualify for, that's your $17, $18 an hour, jobs. So you got to be willing to put in the work, the effort, a lot of time under the hood, a lot of practice, fail forward. There's a lot of that.
Do you think, and this might be controversial, you're not seeing the hard work that was once done? So like you and I are Gen Xers, I presume, a Gen Z. A lot of people look at it and some will say, well, they're lazy. And I always say that they have different motivators. I don't think they're lazy at all. But what is it? I mean, do they just want it, not to work hard for it?
I don't think it's that. I think as a society, we've gotten very comfortable. We've got all these instant gratification, right? You want something, you pull it up on your phone. You want something from the store, just DoorDash it. So everything has been driven towards comfort and convenience. Like when I was a kid, we didn't have all that. It's like, so go outside and play. I live in Florida. It's 100 degrees year round. Like, go outside and play. Like, we would go, it's a kind of a harsh environment. But we grew up building stuff and tinkering around and like having fun and being outdoors and doing things with our hands and, just projects, building tree forts and stuff like that. Now you can't get kids off the couch because they're watching Mr. Beast videos or they're playing their Xbox or their PC, they're on Fortnite and all this others or Minecraft and stuff like that. So they haven't been forced to work hard yet. So by the time they're 18, 19, and they really haven't done anything, they've got no employable skills. You can't just teach work ethics overnight. I used to go bale hay with my uncle over the summer, and I thought that was awesome. And he did it like, 100-year-old type farming mechanisms. Everything is drawn off of a horse, just because that's the way he liked to do it. And so I learned hard work as a young kid, throwing 80-pound bales of hay on the back of a trailer during the summer.
Yeah. I do think it's very different because I look at my own kids. My daughter's 8, my son's 11. Even their friends, like you said, they're on social media. Well, not social media, but mostly on games and stuff like that. And it's just different. Like you said, it's instant gratification. I was telling them about like shows and we had to sit through commercials. You don't do that anymore. You just, fast forward, or if you want something, through Netflix or Amazon Video, like it's easy. When we back in the day, you had to wait till next week for the show to come on. It's not like that anymore. So I think I think we're used to, as this generation, or at least our generation, that instant gratification is not necessarily, and for me personally, it's okay for me to take 2 or 3 years to figure something out and to get where I want to be. Not everybody's like that, especially that generation, I don't feel.
Well, they don't have the patience, and they've got the attention span of a gnat, because everybody's favorite pastime is like TikTok and Instagram Reels. And, they started off longer format. Well, now, they shrunk it down, like Instagram Reels, like 90 seconds. And you got to get somebody's attention within 5 seconds. Otherwise, they're flipping through. So if the kids don't like something, they don't have to deal with hardship. They just swipe up. If you don't want to watch a commercial, cool. Just, like wait for that little button to pop and then you hit skip. Boom. Like instant gratification. Same thing. You're talking about, having instant access to Netflix and, download movies and stuff like that. We had to get in a car on a Friday night, go to Blockbuster. And like, hopefully they had the movie that you wanted to see in stock. If not,
never was.
Yeah,
the new release
back the next Friday. So like we had to deal with, like, you had to learn patience as a kid. Now it's right now. And like, I'm a father myself. I've got a 13-year-old daughter and a 16-year-old son. And every once in a while, they're like, if they don't have their devices or whatever, they're like, oh, I'm bored. That is awesome. Learn how to harness that emotion and be okay with it. Because then you get these people that have anxiety complexes because, they can't get it right now, and they freak out and they melt down and they don't know what to do. It's like, experience some hardship. They don't have to, I had to walk to school when I was in elementary. My kids don't do that. One of them gets bused by mom, and then the other one, gets picked up by an actual school bus. Like, they don't have to deal with any hardships.
Yeah, I just think it's a different generation. They want sort of different things. When you're teaching students, what's the feeling, in the classroom for those individuals? Are they engaged? Do they want to get into the trades, or is it just, I'll learn a couple of things? And
it was when I was teaching full-time at the college, because the school that I own and operate now is a little bit different than like your post-secondary adult vocation. But when I was doing PSAV classes, it was a mix. You get some people in there, they knew they wanted to be a welder. They knew that they were going to do something in this career. They had a path, right? And this was like just one stepping stone to success for them. Some of them were like, I think it's kind of cool. I want to give it a shot. And then others were like, my mom told me I had to go get a job, or I had to go to school, and, I figured this would be an easy class. Okay, so, I mean, you get this dynamic mix. And I always thought it was kind of cool because I could, every once in a while I'd get one of the lazy kids and get them hooked on welding, and then they would start to find that passion and that drive. And you slowly along the way, you teach them, work ethics. And
isn't that fulfilling to you?
It's great. It's great. Like, I had several students that, the complete success stories, complete 180 turnarounds, but you can't reach everybody, right? So it was like, by the time the program was completed, about like 80% of them were going to go on and do something in the industry. The other 20% were still living at home. They're probably going to take another class because they don't want to go get a job.
Who in your mind, because you said success stories, is there one success story that you can share that just pops?
I had a student that he was a veteran, got out of the military, fell on hard times. He was living at this place called the Transition House. This young man, he would ride his bicycle. Well, he also he had some issues with the law. He would ride his bicycle to school every morning. And the guy that, opened the facility every morning, he was there at 6:30. This kid's on his bicycle every day waiting for him. Class doesn't start till 7:30. They'd open the facility. He'd go right back to the computer lab, and they had like this online training stuff that was, like part of the curriculum. But you could also take extra classes and get additional certificates. Halfway through the program, I didn't realize it, but he quit going back to the transition house because he was experiencing problems over there. So he started living in the woods. This young man, by the time he graduated, he had 75 certificates from this online course, plus all of his welding certificates, plus the certificate of completion. and he was able to go get a job up in the Panhandle of Florida doing shipbuilding. And he was able to get his act together. Well, I mean, he kind of had his act together, but he was able to get up there and spend time with his daughter and his new granddaughter. And now he had a career and a set of skills.
How old was he? What was that?
I would say he was probably mid to late 30s.
Mid to late 30s. So he started later.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, because he was, got out of the military and stuff.
So it's never too late.
No, it's never too late. I had a guy, Brad, he took my welding class, and Brad was 65.
65?
Yeah.
So what was Brad doing beforehand?
He was a window glazier for 20 years. So I said, Brad, I'll teach you welding. I'll teach you anything you want to know. But like, what do you want to do with this skill set? He's like, well, I'm going to go get a job. Doing welding at 65? He's like, yep. I said, more power to you, man. That's awesome. So he started a second career. At the age of 65, he went and he learned how to weld, and then he went and got a job welding.
Wow. Good for him.
It's never too late to learn. The school that I run right now, it's mostly for home hobbyists, weekenders, DIYers. I get a lot of people in here that I've been working, for the past 30, 40 years, and I've always wanted to learn how to weld. And now that I'm retired, that's what I'm going to do. So they'll come in and learn how to weld so they can tinker at the house.
I love that.
I had a 76-year-old man come in and take my welding class.
Oh, shit. 76. And was he in a trade before
He
that?
was Florida Highway Patrol.
Interesting. And at 76 decided that he wants to do welding. So you never know.
Never know.
You never know. Your school, how long is it? How long is the program typically?
The longest program I offer is 36 hours.
36 hours.
Which is like just enough to get your feet wet. And I'll tell you, so like we cover like stick, MIG, and TIG all in 1 week. It's built for home hobbyists, makers, and DIYers. It's not meant to get somebody out into the industry and start working. However, it has been like a test drive for a lot of folks. They come in and are like, man, I really like this. How do I get more? So like, I'm thinking about making a career out of this. I will refer them to other schools in the area that have that long-term training program where they can get those employable skills. But it baffles me how many people call up and they say, hey, I've never welded before. I want to come in and take your 1 week class and get certified after that. Or can you help me with job placement once I get done with the program? It's like, no, welding is not something you're going to learn in a week. You're going to have to hands-on, 100% hands-on practice for 250 to 300 hours per process to get good enough to be able to get certified. So it's not something you can just, take a crash course and get certified and go out in the industry. There's a reason most welding schools are anywhere from 6 months to a year.
Yeah. And it's not instant gratification. But it's great that you're getting all types of people and all types of ages going through your classes. If somebody is just starting out or thinking about welding, because I'm thinking about my audience, I'm thinking about the questions we get on social media. If someone's thinking about going into welding, should they go to a trade school? Should they just get an apprenticeship? What should they do?
It depends on your goals or, what you want to do with welding. I would say if you want to be a structural steel iron worker or you want to get, do sheet metal or something like that, go into one of the unions because that apprenticeship program is completely free. If you want to get into welding and you're not sure what you want to do with it, I would recommend a trade school. So it just depends on where you want to go, what you want to do. And like a lot of folks, they don't have a union close to them, right? So it'd be difficult for them to get into it. The great thing about the union is you can learn on the job during your apprenticeship. But like I said, if you want to get into something where there's not a union, which that's awesome too. I've worked union and non-union. There's pros and cons to both. But, if you're going to get into something that's not union related, I would recommend going to the trade school.
Trade school. I don't want to dabble too much in the union, but the question would be mainly because there's a limited amount of seats in the union, right? So what happens if you try to, and this happens quite often, someone applies and they get either waitlisted, they can't get in and they're discouraged. Do you think that they should reapply?
Yeah, definitely. That's my hall does the hall that I was a part of before I left. They would retain your application. So if you didn't make it during like the August list, you might be able to get in January. And if not, like your application still keeps going to the top. You're going to eventually get a phone call.
What can somebody work on the next time around so they can maybe get their way into the union if they got?
It just depends because it's not like a skills assessment when they bring you in. you got to meet the basic requirement and you got to want to be there. So, if they didn't get selected this time, it's just probably due to where they were on the pecking order, how they submitted their application. They'll probably end up getting a call back. But I mean, like, get into something related to skilled trades. I've also recommended to some folks, like, go to the school, like go to a trade school, learn welding. If you know you want to get into structural steel, ironwork, pipe welding, anything like that, you want to go to the union route, apply for the union once you get done with the trade school, because that's kind of what helped me. Like when I went to the ironworkers union, I did structural steel ironwork, and then I joined the ironworkers union and I did ornamental the entire time that I was there. Like I did very little structural steel ironwork when I joined the ironworkers union because I had skill sets that they didn't teach at the hall. I could read blueprints, which, I mean, they teach that, but I could do gas tungsten arc welding. I could do gas metal arc welding. I could do stainless steel, aluminum, things that they don't teach at the hall. The hall primarily taught stick welding and self-shielded flux core. But because I had these other skill sets of, fabrication and stuff like that, they sent me out to work at the theme parks. And so it was kind of like a niche, industry that very few people could qualify for because they didn't have that skill set. And it's not something that the hall was able to teach them. But that previous skill set of going through a welding school is what got me the job. That got me sent out there, and it got me, kept me working year round.
And how long were you in the union for?
4 years.
4 years. Okay. If somebody wants to go, I just want to switch gears to trade school, and I just want to hear your thoughts on this. There's a lot of pushback with trade schools. A lot of trade schools do say, you can come to our trade school, you're most likely going to get a job after. That's not always the case. And that's just feedback that I get out there, is that I went to trade school and it's 8-9 months and I still have not found a job, and I've sent out all these resumes. What do I do at that point?
Move or like apply somewhere else. So it really depends. Like what I tell people is do research on the school that you go to, because I'll be 100% honest. There's employers out there that if they see a specific school's name on that application is going to go in the trash just because they have a proven track record of not being able to produce a qualified candidate for employment. So I would say do your research on the school that you're going to attend. You can check out glassdoor.com. There's reviews on there. Just look at the program, look at the school. What's their job placement rate? Like schools are, a lot of them are, they pride themselves on their placement rate. Go check out their placement rates. Possibly I would let students or potential students come into my program and talk to my current students, and say, hey, how are you enjoying the program? How's everything going? And students aren't going to sugarcoat it. They don't care if you sign up for that class or not. So they're going to tell you 100% truth, but there's some schools out there that are better than others. So, I mean, it's like, making any other big decision in life. Don't do it on a whim. Don't just walk in there and be like, oh, this school down the road, they teach welding, the tuition's affordable. You may not have a great instructor. You may not learn what you think you're getting ready to learn. All the stuff that's listed on that pamphlet, you may not cover that. I know some folks in my area, they go to a specific school, and if you look at the information on their pamphlet, you're going to learn all these different things. And when they get out, they only did one process the entire time. And they still weren't good at it when they left.
Interesting.
So it just depends on who the instructor is. I do like a lot of the for-profit welding schools versus the not-for-profit, like your colleges and stuff like that, only because, yes, the tuition is a little bit higher, but it's owned, operated, managed, and the instruction is all done by people from the industry. The problem with a lot of the not-for-profits, like your colleges and stuff like that, they're hurting for instructors because industry pays almost double of what they're going to pay their instructors there. So and if you get somebody that applies for that, they probably weren't really good in the industry. I got sucked into teaching. So one of my professors, like, he kind of encouraged me, and it turns out that I just fell in love with it. And I really enjoyed teaching, but there's folks out there that they start teaching for the wrong reasons. They're in it because, I get the summers off and I get this, and they try teaching welding from their office, and you just can't do that. Like, you've got to be out there with the students in the shop every single day. If the students are there in the shop, you got to be in the shop. And some places aren't like that. They don't have that mindset of, these people are paying my salary. Like, I need to go out there and give them 100%.
I think wow. I didn't realize that certain trade schools, if they see that, there's not qualified, let's say, welders coming out of those schools. That's wow. Didn't realize that.
It happens. I'm sure it happens with other skilled trade professions as well, HVAC, electrical, plumbing.
Yeah. And for people who don't know how long a trade school is, welding school? How long is that typical program?
It depends. Like the one I taught at was 1,050 hours. So they would knock it out, and we'd do 2 sessions. We had welding level 1 was 22 weeks. Welding level 2 was another 22 weeks. So a total of 44 weeks, just under a full calendar year. Now they've before I left, we redid that program, and it's 28 weeks. So within about 6 months, it's same content, same information. You just get a little bit longer hours.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it's a little bit more fast paced. So we actually started interviewing the students beforehand to make sure they would have the aptitude and the drive to complete that program.
Not every kid can move that obviously wants a job, and they can't find a job. If somebody is stuck, let's say and I've heard this as well, where they'll get a job and they're just not getting the money that they want. They're getting obviously taught different things, but they're not getting the money they want. Do you think that they should just leave at that point? Like, take the knowledge that they got from this particular company and move on if they're not getting the money that they should? Or maybe there's something they're not doing. They're not, climbing that ladder of success because maybe they're just not doing something, that the company sees that's of value to them.
It really depends. I mean, the welding industry is one industry where we tend to use a lot of the companies as stepping stones, because we'll go in there and we'll work, and you cap out and pay, and maybe you do have the skills, that you should be getting paid more. If you know that you're supposed to be, or if you're worth more, don't quit. Like, line up, make sure you got another job before you leave, right? Anytime I've left a job, I've had a job already lined up. So don't just quit a job and be like, I'm just start, next week beating the concrete and trying to find a job. Don't do that. But yeah, if you feel that you're getting underpaid or you're undervalued where you're at and you think you have the skills, yes, go and apply somewhere else. And, that's going to pay you more.
Yeah. Don't stay stagnant.
No. And just continuously learn. I mean, it's like we live in an information, we live in a day and age where information and access to it is everywhere. Whether it's on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, you can learn all these different techniques and processes and different things. And the great thing about the welding industry is there's so many different avenues to go. I mean, you can get into aerospace, you can get into motorsports, you can get into structural, ornamental, custom fabrication. There's a lot of different paths in this trade. So like, if you're not doing great in one industry, or, you're not having a lot of fun, maybe try switching into a different industry. You're still, it still revolves around welding.
Are you seeing companies that are looking for too much experience? So someone, let's say, comes out of trade school and now starts applying. Some companies are asking for 3 to 5 years of experience, but that person doesn't have the experience and are shut out of some of these companies. What does somebody do? And should companies look at hiring people with not that much experience? So someone who's just out of trade school, because a lot of companies, there's somebody aging out that has 15 years of experience. That new person is not going to know what the 15-year person, but do companies need to say, okay, I need to look at somebody that doesn't have as much experience, bring them in, mentor them, train them? Are you seeing companies asking for too much experience up front?
That's a lot to unpack there, but yes. Employers, yes, I think they want too much for what they're willing to pay. And that's what I used to tell students. That's what I tell people that reach out to me via Instagram or email all the time is, oh yeah, I don't meet that 3 to 5 year minimum requirement. Cool, apply anyway. Because the guys and gals that are out there that have that 3 to 5 years worth of work experience, they're not going to accept what they're willing to pay that position. So you go in, you apply, and chances are you're going to get the job because they can't find anybody else. But I think companies need to do a better job of bringing folks in and mentoring them. That's one of the things that I did when I was teaching at the college. We had class Monday through Thursday. So on Fridays, I still had to work. I didn't have students. I would go out and meet with local employers. Hey, what are you looking for? What type of work do you do? Are you guys looking for employees? Come check out my school. Let me bring my students and tour your facility and kind of build that relationship. And a lot of companies are like, no, we're looking for the more experienced people and this, that, and everything. So, well, why don't you take somebody that doesn't have any bad habits, that has the passion, the drive, the motivation, and they've got the technical skills to back it up, and train them to do what you do here, and you're going to have an awesome employee.
Are they open
as long
to
as
that?
You treat them right. A lot of employers, they started changing their mind. Yeah. Well, because I mean, like you got all these people aging out of the workforce. Nobody's coming in behind them. Why not take the people that are willing and eager to learn, that don't have that experience yet, and put them with that old person or elder person, more seasoned person before they retire, and get them skilled up and trained?
Do you think companies are doing a good enough job on the mentorship side?
No.
Why is that?
They're too busy.
Is it too busy, or is the person who, let's say, has been there for X amount of years saying, well, I don't want to train up someone who's new. They might take my job. Is that, you think that's?
I don't think that was the case when I was coming up through the trades. I don't want to show you how to read blueprints or show you how I do this, that, and the other thing, because then, you're getting paid less because I'm the more seasoned guy and I've got all this experience. And, if I teach you what I know, they're just going to fire me. That's not the case anymore. You get on a lot of these job shops or in these shops, and the older generation, they want to teach, they want to mentor, they want to pass that information off. So it's a different mentality. It's a different mindset now. I don't think most companies in general do a great job of bringing people in and providing that, that training and putting them with a more seasoned welder, because they're more worried about getting parts out the door. So I think that's the biggest thing, is they don't set up a training program. They don't have like apprenticeship programs or anything like that, but more and more companies are starting to set up their own in-house training programs and apprenticeship programs. And that's kind of one of the other facets of the business that I have. I'm, working with more companies to skill up their workforce, because they have a younger, inexperienced workforce. And a lot of the people that have been there 10, 15, 20 years, they're aging out, or they already have.
Do you think those kids get discouraged and maybe want to leave because they're not being mentored? So if I understand what you're saying, some companies are obviously now getting the picture of like, you need to mentor, but the ones that are not, so it could be a revolving door. Those kids come in and after X amount of months, they leave, and then the company's wondering, why are they leaving? Is it because that, like you said, they're busy. They can't pull somebody who is experienced off of whatever project because there's no time. Do these kids leave because they don't get the mentorship that they should?
I think so. Yeah, or they're feeling underappreciated. And I think that's usually a management issue. What I tell people is, like, I've never quit a job, I've quit management. And I think that's, if you don't provide that opportunity for them to learn and grow and excel, I mean, that's what people want to do. They get into a job. Nobody wants to stay at the bottom rung the entire time. If you're out there listening, you're a bottom rung kind of person. Like, no, I'm not throwing any shade, but like most people coming in, they want to take that next step in the career. They're starting a career. Welding's not something you get in as a part-time job, right? It's a career. So if you're not giving them opportunity and room for growth and education in that trade, they're probably going to leave you.
Right. You need to have training. You need to have mentorship, and you need to show them what the ladder of success.
Yeah, you got to give them a path. Or like, when you sit down, that's like the obligatory question they ask you: where do you see yourself in 5 years? Right? It's a BS question, right? But I mean, like, if they tell you, here's what I want to do, like, provide them steps to get there. Help them out. I always tell employers when I'm talking to them, like, you need to train your people well enough to leave and treat them well enough to stay. That's the biggest thing. And most folks, especially in welding, for some reason, are like, well, if I give them an opportunity and I, get them certified and this, that, and the other thing, and I pay for their education, they're just going to leave. Okay, well, that tells me you got a shitty management system, because like, if you train them, and they're going to stay and make more money for your company, also pay them. Now they have this additional new knowledge that, yes, you paid for, but now they're a more valuable employee. Pay them that value, right? And treat them with respect. And, they'll stay. They're not going to leave because, oh, I'm certified, now I can get out of here. No.
Let them be ambassadors for your own company.
Yeah.
Treat them well. How quickly should a company, when somebody starts, should they be with a mentor? Is it right away?
I would say day one.
Day one.
Let's stick them with somebody that's, experienced it. I mean, if nothing else, for the safety aspect of it, especially if you're coming out of trade school, like, you don't have access to a lot of the equipment that's on some of these shop floors or on a job site where like everything out there is a hazard. Like, day one, they need to be with a mentor, with a seasoned individual to, learn and help, and, kind of like a on-the-job training as an apprentice would do, very similar to that. You don't take the new apprentice and like send them up 3 stories and say, hey man, go tie in that moment connection, right? You kind of work into that. And the only way you can do that is, with a mentor.
And is there a certain level of experience that somebody should be with a mentor? Like, is it, how many years in should somebody be, or does it matter? Like, is it 5 years? Like,
I think it'd be like case by case basis, because everybody kind of learns a little bit different. Some are, a lot faster, some are a little bit slower, some are bringing, previous skills to the table, some aren't. So it's not like a real defined answer, but I would say, at least get them with a seasoned person for, 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months. Yeah. I don't think kids are willing enough to ask for help. I don't know. It's hard to ask for help. But if the company is already putting that in place, like you said, within the first day, because when somebody comes in, somebody who's new, within the first 24 hours, they get a feeling of the culture. They get a feeling of what it's like there. And sometimes even day one or day two, they know already this is not right, and then they move on within a handful of months. And then the company that has put all this time and effort into that individual, maybe paid for recruiting costs, whatever, all of a sudden that person leaves. But really, it's because the company has a leaky bucket. They didn't put them with a mentor, didn't have the right training.
No, 100%. I mean, that's why they should have like training programs and mentorship programs and stuff like that.
Jason, is there anything else that we didn't cover, anything about your school or anything about welding that would be beneficial to the audience?
I mean, there's so much to it, but I would say welding is for everybody. It's a very diverse group of individuals that come from all walks of life. At the end of the day, everybody's passionate about welding. So there's room in this industry for everybody as long as you're willing to, work hard. So if you're thinking about getting into welding, you want to get into welding school, like don't be afraid of hard work. I mean, it's not necessarily glamorous, but it's provided for my family and I for the last 30 years. Like I said, I've got into welding when I was 15. I've never been without a job. Well, career. Like this has been my career. I've worked at many different places, but usually I've got other companies calling me, trying to recruit me.
Not a bad thing.
While I'm working for somebody else, it's not a bad thing. You get more opportunities. But yeah, like welding is for everybody. So if you're thinking about, getting into it, like go find a good welding school or, a good apprenticeship program through your local union or whatever direction you want to go give it a shot, try it out. And it's a skill set that nobody can take away from you. If you get in there, you put in your 6, 8, 10 months at the school and you're like, you know what? I got this other job opportunity. Cool. Go do that. But like, at least you got something to fall back on. It's a skill set nobody can take and you can do some really cool stuff with it. Even if you don't do it as a career, like I recommend welding to everybody.
Yeah. Even like you said, even if you don't have a career in welding, at least you can do stuff, some pretty cool stuff personally on the side.
And I mean, you can also get into things like technical sales as a welder. You can get into like the manufacturing business, manufacturing and supplying welding goods and services, equipment repair. You can get into welding inspection, welding engineering. Like it's not just the people that are under the hood that the industry is short. Out of 300,000 people, it's not just the people under the hood that we're short. We're short the engineers, the inspectors, like all that stuff. And there's so many grants and scholarships that are available, whether it's through the American Welding Society or the Micro Works Foundation. You can apply for a scholarship. They give you a bunch of money to go pursue your career as a welder or as a welding engineer.
The number you just said, the 300,000, what happens if we don't do anything about it and we stay reactive instead of proactive? What happens?
I think as a country, we're gonna lose it. Name one thing you've touched today that welding hasn't been a part of. Everything. I mean, the car you drive, the bridge you go over, the building we're sitting in right now, the chairs we're sitting on, like all of this stuff, welding has touched that in some form or fashion. So if we can't produce, we're going to be a society of consumers. And that's not going to work out really well for us as a whole. I think it's like 97% of our GDP revolves around welding. So if we can't hit that mark, we're just consumers. How long can you do that without any income?
You can't replace that with robots? Not going to happen?
Most of the companies that I talk to that start automating, because everybody's like, oh, the robots are going to take my job. It's like for every welding machine or every robotic cell that they buy, they end up hiring 2 more welders.
Funny you said that because I had spoken to Miller about cobot welding and what they're doing. They said it creates more jobs. When you think the opposite of like, it's going to take my job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got to have somebody to program it. You got to have somebody to maintain it. You got to have somebody to, swap out the parts and all that stuff, make sure it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, reload it with filler metal, make sure the gases are correct. It's running the appropriate settings. So it creates more work because now, that company's got more volume of work coming in. They're going to have to hire more people to handle that volume as well. Robots aren't going to do everything. I mean, it's going to actually free up your workforce to go, let's bid on some more of these complicated projects that, we can't automate. Now I take some of my best welders and I put them on that. Maybe I take the new person and put them over there running the robot. And like these robots are super simple to learn how to operate now. You teach it with an iPhone and it's just pictures and buttons.
But it gets kids interested working with, machines.
I mean, they got CNC plasma cutters. You literally operate with an Xbox remote control. And like a lot of the robots, I think Ready Arc has a cobot. When they first started coming out with theirs, the Teach Pen is literally an iPad, and the techs can operate it remotely. They can just port right into it via their cell phone, when they're halfway across the country.
Yeah, I love it. And kids are already obviously on the iPad.
Yep. They know exactly how to run those things.
Yeah. Jason, if people want to find out more information about you and your school and social media and podcasts, where do they go?
So for the podcast information, you can follow me on Arc Junkies podcast on Instagram. That's pretty much the only place I really operate with that. If you're interested in listening to the show, it's available on Spotify, Apple, iTunes. The welding school is underground-metalworks.com, and we're located in Orlando, Florida.
Good stuff, Jason. You have a wealth of knowledge, and I appreciate you coming on the show. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the summit.
I appreciate you having me.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.